Crutch. Crutch.
So it's a reset there.
So as it's reloading everything here, we're not going to watch the video, but do a refresh here and see if this will help us. All right, so set. I got one.
You got the other one over there too.
Yay!
Somebody
That's where we're breaking the doxology. Praise God. Okay, here's the reason why I wanted to show this to you.
Oh, your light is on. Your light is on.
I promised you a picture as we were talking about this, where Paul was going to go on his church that was there in Antioch, but the tip right above Israel. This is a picture of the outside of that church. Now, it is a, they built this whole enclosure to try to bring it up to quote. So this is the church in Antioch, and what's it known for us?
Christian.
If the word Christian was used before it was called the Way. First time that they were called Christians was in this church. This is some of the openings down below. They're not really openings, and this is on the inside. They have built this over on top, right behind it. As I told you, they were doing baptisms up in the cave, up at this church, the first place they were called Christians. And then the rulers knew they were doing this, or going after them, pursue them, to kill them. They would go around, this is a person right here. Hole going up on the outside of the cave, going up on top. Rockway all the way down. And the whole, it's pretty cool. Today we're going to talk about another that meant to our study, particularly about at the beginning of Acts. Sorry. Preaching where?
Mostly around Jerusalem and Asia.
Yeah, particularly the beginning of Acts, where is he preaching? Right? At the gathering place in the temple. This temple today, this is the, what do we call? Picture this. If the Wailing Wall is right behind me, right now, to my right, was going towards the library. For the days of they take out these oak cabinets, open them up, they carry these, walk out, and there will be stations. Now, this is the Wailing Wall. Over on the left, there's a big wall, divided, and a fence up top. Women weren't allowed to go in this area, just the men. The women were on that side, so these young boys would carry them over, and they would put them there at the bottom of that wall so that mothers and sisters and other female family members could participate in the bar mitzvah while all the men are on the other side. What's one thing you notice that every person, I'll look at it carefully, has in that picture? What's that? Head covering, yeah. If you didn't have a yarmulke, they would give you one of these, like, this guy didn't have one, he didn't, that's a hat, he didn't have one, he didn't have one. They give you just a paper one that you put on, or you could wear your ball cap, but you had to have your head covered. So, for ladies, do you have a question? If the men could go back and forth, they could go here, why couldn't you go there? Well, I felt bad for you, so I took this picture. This is that opening looking back towards the Wailing Wall. This is the inside. These are the huge, huge holders of the scroll. And there's many of those that are in there. Right behind us here is the library of all the different books that they would keep that are back there, and the readings. Somebody would be sitting in chairs. These people, this guy was sitting here, he was just standing and praying the whole time that we were there. He was just the whole time praying his prayers. I don't know if this picture has it or not. He does on his head. It's hard to see. He has the phylacteries, those things like a box that you put on your forehead, you'd wrap it and tie, you put on your wrist and you wrap it up, and inside there you know there's going to be at least one verse. Deuteronomy 6:4, the great Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one, the great Shema, the center of the Hebrew, and then other passages that have to memorize. Those are in there.
To film, I believe those are called.
Yeah, and then this is another picture, but this is like directly about 100 feet below where we just were.
Oh, wow.
If you're standing upstairs and you're looking down, this was a hole with glass that was cut into the floor that I could stand and look down about 100 feet. It goes all the way down to the stones that was a foundation of the temple that Herod built. And this is down on the inside, standing looking down the steps, going down, and they cut out. Closer. So, this I just showed, stone is like 20,000 tons. One huge, they had pieces of wood that were put in those posts, use it to roll with to build the foundation stones. And Herod was use it to roll with to build the foundation stones. And Herod was it was so meticulous in these stones that he had etched regular appearance. 1,000 pounds in etched of the 70 AD came the temple. What was that? Met it still remains. So important to the Hebrews to this day.
They prayed there.
Well, it's the last.
What is right above this Wailing Wall?
Where the temple
To
is.
the Holy of Holies.
That they can get to, yeah, the top of this, if you have to picture this, this is a picture rendering of what the temple would have looked like. You know, see that? Mm-hmm. This is the holy gate on this side that the majority of the people would come up through, and they would come out in one of these steps coming out into the court here. You know what this is?
Solomon's portico?
That's where the Senate would meet. And they would have all of their 70 plus 1. So the Sanhedrin's council mostly comprised of the Sadducees primarily, and then the chief priests. And then this would be down below the Golden Gate coming up to Temple Mount. Today, this is the Dome of the Rock. right here. This is the Western Wailing Wall, because that's the closest they can get without being on the Temple Mount to be praying towards the Dome of the Rock. What's the interesting fact about the Dome of the Rock that's there today? What is this?
The Holy of Holies.
It's the holy place, and inside that is the,
Holy of the Holy.
and that's where the Ark of the Covenant was kept, where God presided. Remember? And what's this whole mound, this hill area called when David came in? He built the city of David from that rock coming down. The city of David goes down. From that rock coming down. The city of David goes down. Parallel to the Kidron Valley. But what is that rock called?
That's Mount Moriah.
Mount Moriah. Why is that significant? Somebody else.
Well, Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac.
Isaac. Yeah, what's significant about that?
God supplied the ram.
Yeah, and so Abraham was going to be faithful and sacrifice his son. You, I'll be your God. And you'll be a blessing. Blessing through you. You are all Moriah, where God first gave, and it's on resided where God was. It was on and he said, now over, I give up my spirit, and it is finished. Divided the Holy of Holies from the Holies was divided. The significance of that is that now one day a year approach the throne of God, but now all God. It's no wonder why this one section today, where they actively worship,
Al-Aqsa.
in the Dome of in the 80s, you could, as a Christian, non-Muslim, go in there, but they've closed that off since. There was once or twice in the 90s they said, yeah, we've been there 5 times. And 2 of those times we weren't allowed to go on top of the Mount of at all. We couldn't even go up there. And the last 3 times we've had a chance to do that. Part of the importance of that is, from that spot is where God made his covenant with the Hebrew. Right there on that spot is where God convened the covenant through Christ for us as Christians. On that spot, for the Muslim, it being like the second most important place outside of Mecca, is where, quote, the prophet would have ridden the horse into heaven.
Muhammad said it, right?
So there's so much tension around the one spot. It makes sense because of all the history. Are you good with that?
So it's interesting that you bring that up, is you don't realize that when you're there and you see the dome, right, and it's protected, you can't get in there, especially when another religion that holds it is such a high prominent place, right? Where they also, interestingly, the Jews protected it similarly and didn't allow non-believers to go there.
And the Dome of the Rock control has only been given over not too terribly long ago after the 7-Day War. They actually gave the control of the dome over to Jordan. So that Jordan could be, quote unquote, out of it, but yet in it. And yet they gave it back over to Palestinian control. When we were there on our last trip, help me remember, there was a group of, I think, I want to say it was a family, or like 4, that we knew were Jewish individuals that were up there walking around on the Temple Mount. That's not common because it's Palestinian control. You can't even get through Wilson's Arch and the gate unless you have permission from the Palestinian ruling authority. We did because we had a Palestinian guide. That's why I picked a Palestinian guide, so we wouldn't have as much issue to try to get on top of those. Now, but there was a Jewish, you remember the Jewish family that was walking around amongst us? And they had some guards that were kind of escorting them around, and there was guards over there and guards kind of watching where they went, always shadowing and following them. It's just not a very common thing to allow any Hebrew to be up there right now. Although, the Wailing Wall then becomes more prominent because it's the closest they can get to the existence of the Holy of Holies before it was destroyed. Josephus talks a lot about that in his works after the fall in 70 AD. Okay, why do I tell you all that? Because it's really important to know as we talk about what's happening in Acts chapter 3. I want you to see, I want you to know, I want you to understand. This is, just to give you an idea, how big, and this is Herod's temple. When was the first temple built? A long time ago. Who said that? Solomon's temple. And how big was Solomon's temple? The great grandeur of Solomon and bringing things in the wood coming down from Tyre and Sidon. And so how big was that? Okay. Bigger or smaller than Herod? Smaller than Herod. I think this is a really cool comparison. This is the American football field. And that's Solomon's temple.
Can almost fit entire within the whole.
You can put almost 2.5, maybe 3, almost 4 of Solomon's temple inside Herod's temple. And here's what I want you to know about Herod. His palace on Mount Zion, just a little further inside the city, was at least 3 times larger than the temple was. Tell you about Herod?
Yep.
Yeah. This is a good comparison to know about the temple and what all is there. As we look at it, it's really neat to kind of grab a hold of some of the things that are kind of interesting. This soreg is just a fancy name for a fence. And it was only about so high. And how many of you went to the Temple Mount? Do you remember on the ground where they had like little taping off and had like these holes? They were like, what's that for? What's going on? There was nothing else there. And that was where the soreg would have gone all the way around the temple. And it's a little bit of an elevation difference. And then you have Solomon's porch, or Solomon's portico, which was covered right here before you went to where the Sanhedrin would meet. So this would be all of these columns, and I'll show you a little bit more, kind of where people would gather. This is Wilson's Arch, what we call today, which is the Western Wailing Wall side. We walked up a big old huge ramp that came up this way into the Temple Mount. This is the Holy Gate, what they call the teaching steps. I think some went to the teaching steps and had time. We drove by and talked about it. This one is closed. You can barely see the corner of this one, and then you can see those other two today in the ruins that are there. And when they would come in through here, they would walk in these big, huge ramps and come up into this the court. The court of the Gentiles is on the outside, and then you have the court of the women and the court of the men. How are we doing? Good?
Where would be the Golden Gate?
Golden Gate is going to be right here.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the Kidron Valley, and this is the Garden of Gethsemane, and the top, Mount of Olives. Another rendering, Shoshan Gate, Golden Gate, beautiful gate. Solomon's portico, and you come up to these steps and columns right here. This is the royal portico, which would be the Sanhedrin. And these, can you see these right here? These are covered little stairways, so when you come marching up through Holin's Gate, you come up into the court. Just come marching up inside. Down below, underneath the temple, it was a massive thing. During the Crusades, you know what was down below there during the Crusaders' time when they controlled the temple?
Stable?
They kept all the horses and all the stables that were there. And Paladin's army didn't know how are they keeping all, what are they doing with all this? Antonia Fortress, you can still go on the steps and go down. What is interesting about Antonia Fortress? That's where Pilate would have stayed during the feasts and festivals. You know why?
Can keep an eye on things in the temple and make sure it doesn't get out of hand.
He can even see down into the courts where everybody else wasn't allowed to go to. And seeing in and seeing if there's anything like an insurrection going on. If you remember, there'd already been one insurrection of the Hebrews rising up, and it was swelled and put down, and Pilate kind of screwed up when he went back into the city, because he went marching in with his horse and his banners, and he went up into the court area, and everybody raised Cain, and Caesar said, don't ever do that again. I don't care, I'll wipe you off the map. That's not biblical, it's gospel. And so, that's important because what happens after Jesus and his trial? You remember? The chief priest goes to the crowd, starts stirring the crowd up, and they say, hey, who do you want me to release? Jesus or Barabbas? And the crowd cries out, Barabbas. What about this, the man? Here's the man. They say, crucify him, crucify him. And then he says, but he hadn't done anything wrong. And then what do the people say? Now remember the history I just told you.
No friend of Caesar.
Yeah, say it loud.
You're no friend of Caesar.
Yeah, if you don't do this, you're not a friend of Caesar. And that was like, uh-oh. Now, if they go back and tell Caesar, so it puts things in perspective when you see and you can look. Finally, let's go to, talk of the different courts. The court of the Gentiles, this is the sword I was telling you about. It kind of goes all the way around. It was just like a designation. You don't go past here without intent. Gentiles court is all on the outside. Where was all the selling and exchanging going on? Gentiles court. You come back into the beautiful gate, which is facing the golden gate, which is down here, which is Kidron Valley, and you got these different chambers. One is for the Nazarites. What's a Nazarite?
They didn't drink and let the hair go.
It's a male who's been set aside for God from birth. Don't drink, don't cut their hair, and don't associate with blood of a dead animal or thing. Samson, he messed all those up. But he was a Nazarite. Then you have the court of oils. What's the oil for?
The oil for the candelabra.
Yeah, the lamp's got to continually be burning, right? And the incense.
Menorah.
That's right, to the menorah. And what's the incense for?
For the prayers.
The altars.
Yeah, and part of it was for the chief priest who one day of the year went back to the Holy of Holies, that the incense was really, and the third row was really swinging because it needed to be so I couldn't actually see. Because you weren't supposed to look upon God, right? So the incense would be there as an offering to the Lord and as a preservation to say it's such a holy thing that I can't really even look upon that. One of the others is going to be the chamber of the leper. You remember? The 10 lepers we talk about on Thanksgiving. It's always the sermon is on lepers and the 10 and only one returned. Go show the priest. Remember what he said? Where would they go? There would be a chamber for the lepers that would go present themselves to the priest and say, hey, look, I've been clean. And they go, no, you haven't. Don't come back. Or, hey, you have been. And then you can stand and we'll have that brought before God. The slaughter tables. This is really, we don't know whether it was tables, or whether it was anchorings with bolts, where they would put the sheep there, labor them in, slaughter them, and then turn them to the people. During Passover, just picture this. I'm sorry, it's gruesome. This all flows down. That's the way it's built. You slaughter the lambs here, what goes through? And what goes through here? What goes through here? And then what goes through here? Kidron Valley. Blood. And you know what? If you think about it, and we understand history, and we know what's happening, Jesus on that Friday, after he had his, that Thursday, after he had his Last Supper, before he's taken to the cross, he, the Lamb, is walking through the blood of the Lamb in the field, going to the garden to pray, knowing that he is going to be the shed blood of the Lamb. So much in history that we get a chance to go through and to see. Inside the holy place, the lampstand, the menorah, talking about for the burning, the altar of incense, showbread, what's that for?
The bread.
It's exactly right. That's what it's for, as an offering before the Lord. And then the priest room, there's a holy place. The priest can go, then a holy of holies that the veil covered, and that's where the presence of God resided in the Ark of the Covenant. That's what he said. Okay, enough for that. Let's jump ahead. And let's go back to Acts. Let's turn in our Bibles and look at Acts chapter 3. Are we good on the Temple Mount area briefly? No?
I think so.
I'm glad you said no. I made copies for every one of you, so you can take these with you that you can have as a reference for your reading pleasure.
Oh,
You need more
I'll
than that.
never remember.
Acts chapter 3.
Oh my goodness. Det är några tecknade, just your voice.
Enough for you guys.
If you need more, let me know. Here you are. They're coming around. Anybody need more? You good?
Oh, here, oh, bless you.
Everybody good? All right, put those aside. We've already covered those. Put them away. You don't need it. You can look those up when you get home. Acts chapter 3. Let's start at verse 11. Somebody want to start reading Acts chapter, let's actually just start Acts chapter 3 and start reading Acts 3. Verse 1.
Now Peter and John were going up to the temple at the hour of prayer, the 9th hour. And a man, lame from birth, was being carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple that is called the Beautiful Gate,
Okay, y'all know where that is now.
to ask alms of those entering the temple. Seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple, he asked to receive alms. Peter directed his gaze at him, as did John, and said, "Look at us." And he fixed his attention on them, expecting to receive something. But Peter said, "I have no silver and gold, but what I do have I give to you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk." And he took him by the right hand and raised him up, and immediately his feet and ankles were made strong. And leaping up he stood and began to walk, and entered the temple with them, walking and leaping and praising God. And all the people saw him walking and praising God, and recognized him as the one who sat at the beautiful gate of the temple, asking for alms.
Now, you remember last time, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the beautiful gate and why those would be sitting there that had need and had no food, that had no money. You remember why? What did the Old Testament say? You take care of the poor. That's part of your responsibility as a Hebrew. And so everybody that was going to be approaching the beautiful gate outside, it's the Gentile area, the steps going up to, would pass by him. And what do? It's not like a bum on the street you walk by. You stop. Everybody would take care of him. Make sense? He was there because he knew the Old Covenant, he knew the Old Testament, and he knew they're going to be taken care of.
What's an alm?
An alm? It's just a currency.
So money?
Yes. How far did you finish?
And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him. Verse 11.
Now here's what I want us to start focusing on.
While he clung to Peter and John, all the people, utterly astounded, ran together to them in the portico called Solomon.
So where is Solomon's portico? So if we have the temple, we'll bring it back up again. Let's see. All right, here's the Temple Mount. No, it's not big enough. All right, this one. This is the Sanhedrin. This is Solomon's portico right here. He's sitting on the steps right here at the beautiful gate. So they come in, maybe they came north here from the Damascus gate. Maybe they came in this way. However they came in, they're passing by. They see him here. We have a story of Acts 3, 1 through 10 about his healing. And what does he do? You ever had a child that grabs around your leg and kind of follows your leg around and it's a fun game? He is all over them. He won't leave them. And they're walking as they come over to Solomon's portico. Okay? Keep going.
And when Peter saw it, he addressed the people. Men of Israel, why do you wonder at this? Or why do you stare at us as though by our own power of piety we have made him walk? The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, the God of our fathers, glorified his servant Jesus, whom you delivered over and denied in the presence of Pilate when he had decided to release him. But you denied the holy and righteous one, and asked for a murderer to be granted to you, and you killed the author of life, whom God raised from the dead.
That's your Bible you're reading from. I've underlined that. It is significant. We'll talk about it. Keep going.
To this we are witnesses. And his name by faith in his name, has made this man strong whom you see and know. And the faith that is through Jesus has given this man this perfect health in the presence of you all.
So you know what I really like about this? Sometimes you hear a preacher preach and you're like, I think he said that before. And then you listen to me more often, particularly with funeral services, you're like, I think he said that before. Amen. I know he said that before. I'm not the first one that's done that. Let's go back and look at Acts chapter 2. Acts chapter 2. You remember the story so well. Let's go back to Acts chapter 2. Let's start at verse 22. Keep your finger on Acts 3. It'll make sense in just a minute. Acts chapter 2, starting at verse 22. Somebody else want to read that, please?
Men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested to you by God with mighty works and wonders and signs that God did through him in your midst.
Okay, time out. Now, jump ahead in your mind, Acts chapter 3. You say, why do you marvel at me? It's not me. It's somebody else. All right? Now, let's keep reading verse 23.
This Jesus, delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God, you crucified and killed by the hands of lawless men.
You crucified and killed him. Now, jump ahead to Acts chapter 3, verse 15. Hold your finger back there too. And you killed the author of life whom God raised from the dead. You see, okay? You killed him. Now he's doing it again. You killed him. Go back to Acts chapter 2. Now verse 24. Brian, keep reading.
God raised him up, loosing the pangs of death, because it was not possible for him to be held by it.
Stop right there. Now go back over to Acts chapter 3. Look at verse 15. To this we are witnesses. You killed the author of life, whom God raised from the dead. So you killed him, God raised him. Acts 3, you killed him, God raised him. And then, verse 32 of Acts chapter 2. Acts 2:32.
This Jesus God raised up, and of that
We all are all witnesses. Acts 3, verse 15. Read it from the beginning.
15.
You killed the
Yeah.
author of life whom God raised from the dead. To this we are witnesses.
You killed him. God raised him. We're witnesses. He's preaching the same sermon again. What happened the first time that he preached this sermon? Do you remember? Just a few people came to that day, right? I wonder what's going to happen here at this one. 3,000 came together that day. There's a summary in both of these that Peter's doing, and I think he's starting to get a pattern. If I were to preach a sermon, and there are like 20 people came up afterwards and said, I want to be baptized, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to use that sermon again. Especially if I go to another context, right? The power of God's word is efficient and never returns void. But you are the ones who killed him. He was raised to life by God the Father, and we're witnesses to that. I love how Peter is taking that, how he's doing that. I want you to read this at your table just to yourself. Finish reading verse 16 and verse 17. Actually, I want you to read verse 16 all the way through the end of chapter 3. Go ahead and do that right now. Acts chapter 3. Continue verse 16 all the way through the end of Acts chapter 3. Starting at verse 16 and read through the end. Just read it and then discuss.
his name?
No, just your table. Just read your table and then discuss what you find or words that stood out to you. good? I love how the Hebrews would have known that they've been waiting for the Messiah to come. In Greek, that's Christ, Christos. Waiting for the Christ to come, the Messiah to come. The one who's been told about by who? Starts with a P.
All the prophets.
By the prophets. The prophets told about him. I like how Peter gets so succinct, and I like what he says. What does he say in verse 17? And now, what? Brothers, wait, why would I call you a brother if I weren't already thinking of you to be like-minded or coming in and being a part of the family? He's already sensing and seeing where this is going to go. Don't skip that. He's preaching, he's teaching, he's telling. He sees where it's going to go. Instead of saying, you enemies of God, he says, you brothers, your family now, and I want you to listen, and as did your rulers. And then look at verse 18. But what God foretold by the mouth of
The prophet.
that his Christ would suffer, he. So they're going, studying and reading, and I want you to look at through 26 and find how many times the word prophets appears. Nine verses. How many did you come up with? How many?
Nine.
Six. Six times and 9 verses. So let me just say, if I said the same word 6 times in the sermon, do you think you'd remember that? Or if I said it 6 times in a very short amount of time, would I really be driving home a point, something you should know? The prophets, the prophets, the prophets, the prophets. Who told you? The prophets. That's what I'm telling you. That's who this is. And now he's going to go back and do the same thing he did at the Pentecost sermon in Acts chapter 2. He's going to do 2 citations from the Old Testament, albeit they're going to be shorter. Let's look real quick at Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15. Deuteronomy, Old or New Testament?
Old Testament.
Old Testament, one of the first 5 books of the Bible.
Yes.
It's the 5th of the Pentateuch, Penta meaning 5. Pentateuch is of the teachings, the old beginning, or the Torah. And Deuteronomy is where we have one of the 2 places that we are giving in chapter 5 of the 10 suggestions, right? 10 Commandments. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15. Now who's talking?
Moses.
Moses is talking, right? Deuteronomy 18, verse 15. Not Allison, it's Moses. And what does he say? Somebody read verse 15.
The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet, like me, from among your own people, and you shall heed such a prophet.
Anybody have an ESV translation?
From your brothers.
You go ahead and read it.
Okay, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your brothers. It is to him you shall listen.
How clever is that? Peter calls those at the Solomon's portico, he calls them brothers. He's quoting prophets. Man, that's really clever. How he's doing that, all by God's providence, right? All right, let's look at the other one that he quotes. Let's look at Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. Genesis is the
First.
first book of the Bible. Gosh, brilliant. Chapter 12,
12 verse 5. No, verse 3.
12 verse. We get a feel of what this is. This is Abram. Abraham, before he was given the name of Abraham, before he was changed by God. Let's read starting 12, verses 1, 2, and 3. Somebody else read that, please.
Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed.
So in the first few sentences, Peter brought everybody together, brothers, prophets, Jesus, you crucified, God raised, we are witnesses. Now, if you don't believe, you hold the old covenant, you are to be cursed. There's heavy law. Do you see it? And note this, when he's quoting Deuteronomy and the 6 different uses of prophets, what are the difference in that? Did you see the 6 different uses? 2 are singular, that are a reference to Jesus. The other 4 are plural, referencing the prophets about Jesus. What he has done in this masterful way, I just read through it so quickly and I forget what all's happening here. And what impact is happening. There's this person that came in, it's Peter, maybe you don't even know who he is. Or maybe you were part of that great crowd that saw him a chapter earlier, and you were part of that following, and you're here to praise God. And then you go by the steps, and he heals this guy that you maybe gave money to yesterday. And then this guy's jumping up and down, and he's clinging to him. And the crowd's going, what's going on? What's happening? I want to follow this. You know what amazes me about traffic wrecks?
Everybody goes.
Everybody wants to break their neck to figure out what's going on. And instead of driving the distance at an appropriate rate, you're like, oh, sorry. Yeah. It's the same thing in a mass crowd. When you see something happening, or you see a famous star, what does everybody do? Boom, they take off, they flock. We go over there. When we were in Martha's Vineyard, we didn't realize what was happening. There was a large contingency of people showing up. There was a lot of African-American individuals showing up, and Kathy and I were like, what's going on? What's happening? And we looked it up. It was the 23rd annual African-American Film Festival they're celebrating. And I'm like, ha, 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 that's Keith David. Ha, 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 ha. And there's all these people. We sat down to get a drink real quick before we got on the ferry and took a picture of she and I. And right at the table behind us was the black gentleman, I can't remember his name, who was in Maverick, Top Gun. And I'm like, it's a good-looking dude. That guy's in Maverick. That's pretty cool. All over the place. And there were people coming up and going, hey, can I get a picture? And I'm like, I don't know who that guy is. But people were flocking all around. It reminds me of what was happening here in Acts chapter 3. Flocking to hear. What does Peter do? Same thing he did in Acts 2. Let's do it again. And he starts, and he does his real quick sermon, and then he breaks further in detail to what's happening. All in the temple courts. I think that's really cool. And we can't skip by that. We've got to watch that and see that as we go through. Okay, good. We got through 10 verses.
We did them before, but we focused on the ounce.
Yeah. So, anybody have any questions as we close? Are we good? I'm asking in seriousness because I get kind of geeky about this. Is this too deep? Or are we okay with where we're going?
Should we mention how many came to faith this
We'll
time?
cover that next week. Yeah. Hold that thought. We good? Or should I? Okay. Yes? Everybody say yes if we're good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I need your feedback as we continue to plan and prepare as we go forward. Who would like to close us with a word of prayer, Beverly? Why do I ask?
Lord, I know you may have been at the top of these different palaces and everything, but you really didn't separate men from women. When the curtain came down, when it was torn in half, that's what you wanted, for everybody to come to you, no matter who we are, no matter what we say. You know us inside and out. May we come to you, Father, every day. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Go in peace to serve the Lord.
Thanks.
I want you to take those handouts.